that you want to throw up there, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini. Please feel free. We'll just take a quick second and look at that. This way, as I was saying, as we go through, we can keep it at, an intro level if that's really where the community needs the support. Otherwise, if people, are already using it every day, we want to make sure that we're not boring you with the basics. This is great. Great to know. So thank you guys. And please feel free to continue typing and we'll ask a few other questions along the way. And like I said, whether you'd like to come off mute and, just on a side note, throughout this conversation, please feel free to come off mute and ask a question or share a point of view throughout. Um, but whether you'd like to come off mute or share in the chat, we really appreciate this sort of collaborative dialogue to make sure that we're delivering the best and also that we, have a little bit of fun and learn as well. So, what we hope to focus on today and spend the next hour doing is, as you can see in the title, get proficient with AI fast, really demystify what AI is. So, kind of take a look at it away from the hype and away from those scary headlines and really look at it from a practical view. As a real world tool that can actually make your life easier. And by the end of the session, we hope that together we can do a little bit of a follow along demo/lab and try some AI tools out together and ensure that you're walking away with some clear next steps and some value to bring into your everyday life after this.
Yeah.
So, with our introduction, then, just to share a little bit about me, and I'll say a little bit about Daryl too, just because it's connection. Daryl and I know each other because we both worked at IBM for many years. I worked at IBM for over a decade. He, I think, has a few extra years on me. Neither of us now work for the company, but we clicked there. We met. We had an experience together where we worked on a project, and then we continued to stay engaged and continue to, after IBM, stay engaged in exploring technology, not just AI, but just advancing technology, innovation, sort of a futurist perspective. And we're both very passionate about kind of exploring what's coming and how can we connect with others to just make it a value to our lives and help others. As it says that right there, right? We're dedicated to helping people use AI on their own terms, no tech background required. So currently, the way I know Carrie and whatnot is I'm doing more of a consulting and coaching perspective, which I look forward to doing a little bit continued after this with the community. Um, and that's how we came into this conversation today. So with that, I'll allow Darrell also to introduce himself.
All right. Thanks, Sam. And yeah, like you said, I know we had the chance to work together for about 5 minutes um, professionally, but then there was all kinds of other, I know we had a lot of common interests, one of them being this idea of education and teaching some of the innovations that are happening. I'll say for myself, I come at it from, I started as a journalist, I've been a marketer for now 20 odd years. And so not necessarily. A lot of my career is about trying to take the kind of gawpy, weird technical stuff and try and make it human, try and make it understandable by the people. So hopefully that'll come across today. And that's really yeah, as you say, that see it as a core goal today. If you're scared about this technology, if you're scared about, well, what it is, hopefully there won't be too much in terms of just throwing a bunch of language at you and a bunch of acronyms and all that stuff, as technology always has, but more about how you can actually get real value from it. So with that said, I think we can dive straight in.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Over to you, Sam.
So, what we're going to cover today is laid out here. We'll start with a quick foundation, what AI actually is, how it works, and then we're going to spend the majority of our time in those demo sort of follow along lab type components because Truthfully, I mean, what better way to actually learn than activating it together and playing around and realizing the benefits firsthand. Um, so I just want to quickly ask too, and I know I saw some comments already in the chat about Perplexity, ChatGPT, etc. If you have a preferred tool, please feel free to open a tab. If you'd like to follow along, we do encourage it, but that's up to you. But we do, if you'd like to follow along, please feel free to open a tab and pull up our recommendation is either ChatGPT or Claude today, or Gemini would also be another good fit for the use cases we intend to explore. Um, and then with that, I'll just um I'll just take one more beat and just invite anyone in the chat if you'd like to share. Looking at these five sections, is there anything specifically jumping out at you as a need to know? As you saw, Daryl and I, we did get some questions in advance, and we're going to approach those throughout the conversation. But if there's any area that you for sure want to make sure is covered in depth, feel free to, just give us a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on this, and we will spend a little bit more time there. And then just a reminder that throughout the conversation, you can feel free to also come off mute or use the chat. Okay. I'm going to assume tabs are open for when we dive into the demo. So, Daryl, if you'd like to take us into the What is AI Foundation?
Sure. All right. All right. So let us talk a little bit about what this stuff is and what it's not. Just okay. So artificial intelligence, simple definition. It's software that can perform tasks that normally require human intelligence. So, what is that kind of things? It's things like trying to understand language as we're talking, things like obviously we see images, we might have to understand those, even just things like making decisions, certain things that I would say certain aspects to us that have in the past been largely part of kind of the human experience, but now computers can, I'd say, help and aid. I wouldn't go so far as to say can replace. I know that might be a topic that we might need to touch on at some point. Um, I'll say and I do spend my day to day working in this space and working on these systems. I think we're very far, if not. I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where they'll fully replicate or replace humans, but they can do certain things which like understanding certain aspects of human intelligence. How do the systems learn? So these modern AI systems, there was a big change. You may have heard of something called large language models, generative AI, largely big change around about the end of or during 2022. So we're about 4 years into this kind of current wave of AI. And basically what it was just that AI systems have always been trained on massive amounts of data, things like text, images, audio. One thing that changed quite dramatically and about 3 or 4 years ago now is just the idea that if you just think of just even just looking at something like the public internet and how much information's on there, everything from Wikipedia to there's academic journals, there's all kinds of information, there's a lot of stuff that we share on social media, all this kind of thing. So these systems, basically the big change was with if you've ever heard of something called generative AI or what they call large language models, is just really a way of being able to interpret and process that information in a way that just was not possible before. And, you're talking about ridiculous amounts of information here. And so, in terms of what AI is not, and just sorry, just one other thing, in terms of what these systems are able to do, then is really it's around things like pattern matching, like finding oh, that normally quite often if somebody says this word, then quite often it's followed with a word like this or a word that might be this. And so that a lot of it is, even though they seem, and we'll get into this, where they can kind of seem smart, really speaking, a lot of really the intelligence, so to speak, comes from really just really clever ways of pattern matching and seeing patterns within either within text or speech or images and being able to process that. And so, in terms of what AI is not, It's not magic at the bottom of, it's still rarely computing. It's still at the end of it, it runs on the same kind of computers that either you're sitting watching Zoom on now or not that different to really what your phone, when you hold your phone in your hand. Um, it's not alive, doesn't think the way humans do. So it's really that there is one principle that you can sometimes they talk more recently about this idea of kind of what they call jagged edge thought, which is almost like if you think of like a bullseye, like a surround of like if that's all the kind of things the human can think of from, everything that we hold from, it might be from our schedules and what's happening to the language we know, to the reminder, to what we know about the books we've read, to our arithmetic, to what we may know about the sciences. If you think of all of that, how we make decisions and all that piece of it, really speaking, AI systems because they can assimilate so much more information than we can. Sometimes it does look like they've got massive amounts of knowledge and they can do all these crazy things. But in other areas, then you'll just suddenly see, wow, where does it fall flat when I want it to, if you ever use these things to do some building of like simple like web pages and things like that. All of a sudden, it'll build you a beautiful web page just with a few words. But then when you want to move a button around or when you want to do something else, all of a sudden it really struggles with just doing something which you'd be like, hang on, that doesn't seem that difficult compared to what you just did. But really speaking, just beware that they're good at some things, less good at other things. And we'll touch on some of that as we get into some of the demos today. But basically, as you're saying, it's really a pattern match. It's basically a very, very smart pattern machine that can just find patterns in huge amounts of data, more so than typically than humans can do. So just to bring that to life a little bit more, and if you are familiar and been around, like even just thinking of, you might be like me, have been around the block a few times, have seen the advent of when like the PC came around and things like that, where all of a sudden you had these computers that could do quite amazing things. And so a traditional computer is really good at being able to do things like simple arithmetic. You can say 3 plus 4 equals 7, for instance, and then it can take that a step further, and then you've got spreadsheets. So, but really speaking, all of that computing up until a few years ago was largely based on that same kind of rational, kind of that way of calculating. And so typically the computers that we had and that we were using, they needed quite defined inputs, and then they would give you a quite defined output. And one thing, as we'll get into, and you'll see this, one of the big changes with AI, and it goes back to this because of this pattern matching, is that AI systems are they don't quite have that same level of you put something in and you get exactly the same thing out. And so which means it can be terrific for certain creative tasks, for finding certain information. So what that means is that an AI system could take things like the information, like you could give it, well, I have a house, my house has a front porch with roses, and actually the house has 2 bedrooms upstairs. And these could be two separate pieces of information that you feed into the computer. Um, Old computers would just be able to put those two kind of sentences and stack them up next to each other with an AI system. And for those of you, I know some of you have played with these tools, you've probably seen that you can put that kind of information in and it'll riff on that. It'll tell you certain things like the house has features like a charming front porch adorned with roses, creating a warm and inviting entrance. Upstairs, it includes 2 bedrooms, offering a cozy and comfortable living space. So thankfully, it's kept the same information. It hasn't hallucinated and gone off the charts, which it can do occasionally, but it stayed with the core content, but it's also somewhat embellished it. But again, all the embellishment, that's not magic. That's largely based on patterns. All right. So with that, over to you, Samantha.
And there are a lot of types of AI. Here we highlighted a few, but to be honest with you, this is just a few, and they're constantly developing more and more use cases. I was just reading an article earlier today about AI around specifically manufacturing for semiconductor elements. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Like, forgive me. I totally could be wrong. I kind of have an assumption that that use case, while super interesting, is never going to apply to something I'm doing. And I have a little assumption. I wouldn't guess it was for this community, but forgive me if I'm wrong. If it is and you want the article, would love to send it to you. But just highlighting that this is not just like, oh, here are the six forgive me, five use cases. There are many use cases, and a big one I'll note too is you probably have heard the term vibe coding a lot recently. Coding in general has been an AI use case. It's gotten to the point though where, as Daryl mentioned, right, you can just have no coding experience and just with some strong prompting and understanding what you need to do as a collaborator with the AI, you can begin to code an application or a website or whatever it is you're looking to do. So here are just a few categories of AI that we wanted to focus on. Um, but again, noting that there's a full landscape. And so here you have language AI. This is the Chat GPT, the Claude. It's the tools that we're going to focus on as we jump in a few minutes to our demos. And it reads and writes text. It also has that speech ability, so you can just talk to it. You don't actually even have to type. And it can also, it has a I'm trying to think of what MVI stands for, but it's visual element. It has the ability that you can just do a screenshot or send it some files, and it can read the files in that element as well, and work with you in that regard. There's image AI, so that's tools like Dolly. They can create images just from a description or analyze a photo. I don't know if any of you saw during the holiday season, there was this whole trend about people prompting it was everyone was doing the same prompt, and they were all in some sort of like candy scape world where they had these beautiful gowns on and a giant candy cane with them. So there was this prompt that, and sometimes people do that. They'll generate a prompt, they'll create their own prompt for something that just worked well, and then they like to share it out and create some sort of trend like that. So that's image AI. Then there's voice AI that's converting, as I was saying, you see that in a few different areas, but specifically here, you're converting speech to text, text to speech. Um, and that's something that you can work on with the tools that we'll do. There's predictive AI. And so the one, I think, whether it's Netflix or Hulu or Prime, if you are a streamer, you probably see this without even realizing it. That's how they're recommending what to watch or listen to next. And then there's autonomous AI. So that's the agents. That's how AI is now actually going beyond just partnering with you, but actually taking actions on your behalf. So if you've ever used Google in terms of you can now make it, you can request that it goes and looks for an appointment for you. So I might, search for hair salons in my area, and I can put in a request to the AI and ask it to come back to me with availability of whatever salons I tell it to, and then AI is actually taking that action for me and taking that to do off my list and just coming back and saying, this salon has this hours, this salon has this hours, this salon has this hours, and then it'll go the next step of, is there a salon that you'd like to book at? I can tell it, it'll take those actions. And you may have heard the term agentic framework for companies and enterprises as well. This is what that means. It's seeing the different AI tools come together and be orchestrated in a way that it's almost a fully automated system to reach an end result where maybe before you were just getting the picture from Dolly, but then you had to go post on your social media. Not that that's available yet, but that's just an example of what agent means, that it's connecting all those dots. So before we jump in to these a little bit more and actually talk about a few tools, I'm just curious, are any of these surprising? And you can put it in the chat. If it did you know about any of these use cases already, or any of these use cases specifically, what you're actively engaged with when you use AI? And I know I'm always like asking, and then I pause and I'm like, are they gonna type to me? I'll give it like a good 30 seconds, but yeah, I'd welcome any point of view, just if there's something we should dive into. Never we will go through them. feel free to continue to put those in. And then as we jump into the demos in a moment, we can focus where the most interest is too. So, Daryl, the next slide. Um,
Sure. Actually, do you want to just, there are a couple of questions we might be able to just address while we're here. Do you want
Daryl's interrupting my flow, but go ahead, Daryl.
to?
Go.
No,
Clearly, it's
just a
not
group.
the Samantha show.
It is, Samantha. If you want to do that, we can do that.
No, no, no.
However,
Please, which questions did you see?
no, I see Matthew is
Thank you,
asking.
Shauna. Daryl, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
What question did you see?
Matthew is asking, could ChatGPT be considered an AI agent? And I know you're talking about agents.
Where were you answering?
Oh, do you want me to? I would just say, kind of. I think ChatGPT, I think most of Um, the way that I know most people tend to use it will be the chatbot, as in you
Hmm.
see the screen and you interact with it and you prompt with it. They are bringing out more and more what you might call agentic features in terms of being
Hmm.
able to um, mainly for if you're on the technical side and you know how to code, then you can start building what Sam was saying, those kind of agents. You might want your own agent that could go off and do certain tasks for you. Some folks may have heard of something called OpenClaw, which got some publicity about over the last couple of months, which again, it was more on the technical side. You needed to have a certain degree. Usually, if you kind of know you how to code a little bit, you could basically set up almost like a private version of something like a chat GPT on your system that could control files, it could control a browser, so it can do that kind of work and you could send it off to do those kind of things. And actually, OpenAI, who own ChatGPT, recently bought that technology, OpenClaw, and they also then allow their platform can be used to create these kind of agents that can do that. And now more and more companies are doing their own agents.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Jess. Um, yeah, no, and I would think of it as you know what, this is where it's so interesting because the technology is moving so fast. So it's so funny just to comment, right, that I unfortunately had that power outage and snow or whatnot in January. What I would have said in January is different than what I'm saying now because the technology just moves so fast. So who knows? It could totally change. But as of now, I believe, Chat GPT, along with Claude, as well as a few others, they're more AI assistants. But to your point, it's the agent piece is just like an orchestration tool that brings the different AI assistants or AI tools together. So the agent is like an overarching layer, right? It's like these are all how do people like to talk about collaboration? It's like all these AI tools are instruments, but together they're a symphony, right? So together, when we link them up, they can do something um, more powerful. So I think agentic AI, we'd have to do another session just focused on that transparently. And we'd have to decide on a use case together before we'd have to take a poll, but we can talk about it. If there's a poll and, if there's something specific that we want to talk about, we'd need to come in together as like a, hey, this is the agent we're going to build. Cause, otherwise it's like you can think about like I want to build an agent specifically to help me with my social media, or I want to build an agent to do this, and it just is a little bit complex. So, um, yeah, should I continue, Daryl?
Go
Yeah, is
ahead.
that or
Yes.
bro? Are we okay? Yeah, okay. So, where was I? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, and we're almost at the demos, which is where we want to make sure we get to the bulk of our time. So here are just six tools that we would put in front of any beginner. Um, and they're also all free to start, whether it's a free trial or, most of these tools. And side note, there are hundreds, if not thousands of AI tools. And most of them, if not a free tier, like they have a free tier that you get a limited sort of access to, they usually all have free trials. So definitely worth exploring any tool. But here are six tools that the majority of the world probably uses when they think about how are they using AI. It's usually one of these tools, and it's really tools that are not just user friendly, but they have, a sort of a collaborative mindset to kind of work with you and help um, be a partner in AI, because that's what AI should be, right? The best use of AI is when it's acting as a partner, and as you put information, never proprietary personal information. We'll get to that shortly. But as you talk to AI, maybe share ideas or different things that you're working on, it'll start to respond in a way that can relate back to that. So it has a memory, and it can improve as well as it works with you. So here in the top row, there's ChatGPT, which is from OpenAI. There's Claude, which is from Anthropic, and there's Gemini, which is from Google. And these are the three most widely used AI assistants for any general tasks. So I would say that's writing, questions, brainstorming, analysis. So those sort of areas, but also like I began to note there's some generation of images and things in there too. And you are beginning to see those interact more in an agentic framework, but that's again higher level. And then in the bottom row, there's Microsoft Copilot, which integrates directly into Microsoft Office. Perplexity, which I know I saw some of you use. It's amazing for research. It's really amazing for research because it shows you its sources as well, which you can do that on any of these tools. You just have to ask for it, where Perplexity is very active in showing you the resources, which we'll talk a little bit about the potential danger or challenges of AI. And, if it's not leveraging a resource that's trusted, that's where, an issue can occur. And also Notebook LM from Google, which lets you upload your own documents and ask questions directly from them. So I'll just share it. Like I actually had gotten this legal document the other day, and I uploaded it there, and just you might be able to tell I'm not I am not a lawyer. I get very confused by legal jargon. I might understand the words individually, but as they write it, it's a little bit confusing for me. So it pulled out one, the most important details, but also clarified for me what certain phrasing meant, because it was confusing to me. So that's where, the AI technology is able to actually talk to me about the document in that more intimate way. Um, and I think I just wanted to share that because I think Notebook LM is also potentially useful for people like yourselves. Like I saw someone working with their clients often. So if you have different documents that would need to be reviewed in that way, if you're someone who might have a lot of insurance paperwork or things like that to go through, you can just upload a document and literally ask it questions about your specific case, and it'll share as if it's a friend there talking you through it. You can, and if it comes back with something that's still a little bit too high level, you explain it to me as if I'm five, right? Just explain it further down until we get there. So all of these, like I said, have free tiers, and they also do have paid versions, which can unlock more features, but you won't need them to follow along with us today. Um, Let me just take a beat here and invite any questions about these tools before we get into our demos. Feel free to come off mute, or just, feel free in the chat. You can also, if the answer is no, you feel free to just put us a no, and we'll continue on our way. Um,
Or I can be just disruptive and just jump in again and just stop the flow. How about that?
wow.
Th Thank you. My name is Aruna. I had a question. You mentioned about a legal document that you uploaded on a notebook LM, and then it explained to you the terms that you were not familiar with. How you upload it, and then you ask question, verbally interact with it. How does it work?
Exactly. So my first question was that, you know, attached is a legal document. I am very confused by it. Please summarize the key points. And then I had obviously, don't trust it like a lawyer, but I had gone through it and also made sure that I had highlighted a handful of the key things that were confusing to me. And I'm just noticing too in the chat, just you could do the same thing with medical papers and medical topics. Just be careful that it doesn't include anything like personal, anything that you would not want to be leveraged in there. Like this document, that's my risk of just sharing, putting my name on, like I had my name on it, but it didn't have anything else. And then as it explained to me, both the summary, I asked questions about that, and then I also went back and asked specific questions of like section 2.c or whatever it was has this phrasing which seems, concerning. Can you elaborate on that, etc. So it's just uploading and then going from there. And that's, I personally think that Notebook LM is a very strong tool for that use case. But I will also note that's something that you could do with most of the assistant tools, the ChatGPT and the Claude. Notebook LM also has a little bit higher scrutiny in terms of how they leverage data for training and things like that, which is why I choose that. But depending what it is, especially if it's something generic, you could absolutely just upload something to Claude or ChatGPT as well and start there if you're more comfortable with those tools. Hopefully
Yeah.
that answered the question. I know I went on a little ramble there.
Thank you.
Of
Yeah,
course.
and just to add on to what Sam said, I think one thing with Notebook LM where it is valuable is that it will, like when you ask it questions, it will look specifically at that document. Whereas the other tools, when you use them, they'll embellish and they'll use other information to give you a more concrete answer, which it depends what you want. Sometimes you may just put in a document and you're trying to find out generally around that document, are there certain things? But if like, especially like some of it was a really good case you gave, like a legal document where you want to know specifically to that particular document, not just generally in the kind of legal sense or the legal terminology out there. You want to know things that are very specific to that document. Then a Notebook LM works really
Yeah.
well in that context.
And just to your question, Diane, in general, we should always be careful. I know I'm a little fast and loose sometimes with my with my information, but we should not be like that. It's like I sign up for all the emails and then everyone has my email. There are settings on all of these tools that can allow you to restrict what it takes away for training. So I think in general, just like when you use your phone and you the Apple Wallet and you put your credit cards in there or something, and then every now and then you get like an alert that says, your password or your card number, whatever it is, was revealed in a, a breach. Technically those things could happen. These companies have the responsibility. So I mean, I wouldn't like be super scared of that. I would just be cautious. But when it comes specifically to training the data, you want to make sure that you were very cautious in that regard too. And it's just in the settings, but I'm thinking as we jump into the demos, I can on the side go in and maybe screenshot where I believe the settings are if I can find them, of where you would turn it on or off. And every tool is different, but I think I know off the top of my head where a few of them are. So I can do a screenshot and I'll put it in the chat of where the toggle is to say, hey, don't use my data for training. And keep that information out. That said, again, like you want to be as cautious as possible, not to even give it the information, the potential to have any sort of risk, because
Mm.
unfortunately there are bad actors that hack things and take information and whatnot. So,
Yeah.
um,
And just
okay,
to
Daryl, was that
add on
enough of a ramble, Daryl? Can we get
No,
back on
I'm going to add
track?
on top. I'm going to add on top. Because also I think can answer Suzanne's question about asking about medical papers, medical topics, which I know we will touch maybe a little bit more on this, but as it relates to that question of privacy and training these systems, just one thing, like when it comes to, let's say, for instance, you have a medical condition and it's something that you want to find out more about. these tools can be used to give you information. I'm sure some of you have done this already, that you've used these tools to give you information. It's, in some ways it's, as I was saying before, it's trained on the internet. You can't take it over the advice of a doctor or something like that, not
Yeah.
claiming that. But it can be useful just to give you some background, the same kind of grain of salt you take when you might read a page on a website on the internet. But then having said that, then if you're putting in something like if you've got a medical report that has a lot of all your vitals and a lot of your information, that would be a good place to either not put it in the system at all, or at the very least, if you're going to use one of these tools, is to do it with the privacy settings turned on. So I think it does come into, like I wouldn't say, whether it's legal or medical or some of these fields, it's not saying never use the tool for any of these things, but just be really wary as soon as if it has anything that's any of your personal information, say that would be a really good point at which, whether it's medical, legal, whatever it is, to just think maybe let's not put that into the system, because it could be that the system gets trained on it and people would be able to use that training to find out information about you that you might not want them to know.
Yeah. I think, with just about 20 minutes or so left, we should dive
Get
into some
into
of
the
the
demo.
demos. And then on the side, I'll do some screenshots of
Yeah.
where those elements are to turn it off.
So, I just did. Hang on, I think I just did. Let me go back. I'll just let's do that. We'll do this one just to jump in for. So we'll do this first demo. If you want to do this on your own, you can do this. Go to chat.openai.com, chatgpt.com. They go to the same place. And we're going to use this case study of just talking about photosynthesis. And it's going to be if I this explain photosynthesis like I'm 10 years old, and then explain it like I'm a college biology student. So with that said, if you've got that, and you can follow, and that's what we're going to do, and I'll go through and we'll go through this demo right now. So I will stop sharing that. Where'd it go? All right, so hopefully you can see there's we'll do this one. Oh, so we'll start with the one I know, the one that's definitely got the highest traction right now, ChatGPT. So I'm here, I'm logged in. Just to go back to while I remember just that question around if you do want to do something that doesn't train the system, and you can either do it in the settings so that your data never goes into ChatGPT, but if you want to do something that at least disables the memory for you, you can do it this way. Just clicking that one. But for right now, so let's say this. We'll go ahead with that same prompt. I'll explain photosynthesis like I'm 10 years old. So that's what we'll do. Type that in. Here we go. And you can see you got this nice sweet explanation here. It gives you things like saying there's green stuff called chlorophyll that helps catch sunlight. Gives you some in really simple terms. Now what you can do, that same thing, if I say explain this explain this to a PhD student. You'll see that, it's effectively the same thing. We're still talking about photosynthesis, but you get a very different explanation. Stuff that I'll say I'm nowhere near a PhD student in the sciences, and I'm guessing this is accurate if anyone does know. But you can see here, the degree to which it gave two very different answers. This was the one, if I said explain it like I'm 10 years old, it talks about things like sunlight, energy from the sun, water from soil through roots, carbon dioxide. And then as you get into this, the explanation to a PhD student, you're talking about photon absorption by PS2 and PSI, I think. Might not even be PS2, maybe that's PSII. Water oxidation, you've got the chemical formulas that bring this to life. So if it just gives you a sense at which these tools can answer questions at a very different level. And just to show, I'll do exactly the same thing. I'll use one of the other ones. Let's do this on Perplexity. And I know there was asking how these systems stack up. So I'll just copy that, explain photosynthesis like on 10. Yeah, Perplexity, do exactly the same thing here, type the same section in. You'll see it takes a little bit longer. It does some thinking. And the way Perplexity works is that it actually goes out to the internet and actually finds pages, whereas ChatGPT, what we saw there, was just using its own, basically what the version of the internet that it's built. And so it takes a little bit longer on Perplexity, but it will generally give you a lot more images, a lot more there's references, but and it tell you where it's got all its information from if you want to follow that up. And then let's do that same thing again and explain to the HD studio. You can see you don't need to type in, I don't need to tell it again. This is a thread that we're going through, and this is a prompt what I'm typing in. So the thread means that it remembers what my initial one was. So I don't need to say again that it was about photosynthesis. And that's the same with all these tools. And again, you've got a different answer here. It's got a lot more detailed. It hasn't given, you can see it's different to ChatGPT in terms of not giving all the scientific symbols that we had before that we got with ChatGPT. So Perplexity is a little bit more um, narrative, and there's more text here. It talks about things like the Calvin cycle. Talks about it being a primary interface between solar energy and the biosphere. In some ways, again, if you're a scientist in the room, you may have a perspective on which of these you prefer, one or the other, if one of these stands out. But hopefully that gives you a sense in terms of, you can see here that um, that you can the different tools will give you slightly different answers, and some of them dial up. Like, so we could do, I won't do the same example on Gemini, but again, the Gemini would work the same way, where you just type a very similar prompt in and you could do that. I'll say just an observation is Gemini, Perplexity tend to be good if you're looking for information about things which are current. So even, for instance, if you want to find out, I could just say, where is the nearest Thai restaurant that's open now? You know that with a Google search, you could always find Thai restaurants near you, but what's a bit more difficult is to find if it's open right now or where it could be. And here it is. I'm in California, and it's given me some options. It will even do things like it will tell me then, where they've been, the highlights between each of these. Um, but it will base it, this will use more current information than you would get, for instance, from ChatGPT, because it's basically Google Gemini now uses it uses Google's search engine, and it uses up-to-date information as well. Don't know, Sam, anything to add at this point?
No, I think that's sort of the high level, uh, you know, just opening up Chat GPT or Claude or whichever tool that you'll see. Um, I'm thinking maybe just if we kind of highlight some of the use cases we had uh we had laid out and seeing if which
Okay.
one is maybe top of interest, and that's the one we could go through with
Yeah.
time in mind. Um,
Do you want me to
there's a question, which one uses up to date?
information, which is
Oh, I think they're just constantly being trained, the models, but you can't know with certain like you
yeah.
shouldn't, yeah.
You can test them a little bit, like for instance, I'll just do this. Let's see if it knows if ChatGPT is one it's very robust and it's very quick, but it tends to be a little bit further behind in terms of its knowledge set. So I happen to know, let's see if it knows about, there is something called, well, my son wanted these. He's into all kinds of technology. Hey, there's some new headphones that just came out at the beginning of this month. Let's just try that. All right, so it's got the nothing here, which actually isn't the specific ones that he got. Now, if we try that same thing just to put it in, and just while that one's running, can do the same thing over here with perplexity as well. In theory, yeah, see, so they've come up with different answers, and the different answer is partly because this one did come out at the beginning of the month, and so perplexity does tend to, that's one of the advantages with perplexity. It will give you up-to-date information because it does go out almost on each search and it will go find information directly from the internet. Let's see whether I'd be interested to know. And even Google Gemini will tell you that there was these that were released in early 2026. So do bear that in mind. I know I was working on a project where we were doing some research into kind of like it was around some business areas. We're looking at like the future of like streaming media. It's not very exciting, right? But it was
Mhm.
part of my day-to-day work. And then just doing, because one of the things you can do with a lot of these tools as well is you've got all these different ways you can do research. And one of the things that can be good, it takes a little bit longer, but you can do deep research on a topic where you can go a lot. It'll give you almost like the equivalent of like a shortish scientific paper on a topic. And for the areas that we were researching, it was kind of clear to see that when you ran the same deep research, I won't do it now because it'll take too long, but you can do the same thing here on Chat GPT as well. You could go in and you can select deep research. What that will do is that Chat GPT would only actually, it would only give you research up until about the end. Its data was almost about 6 or 7 months old. Whereas Gemini was up to date, and it would also then be a lot more future facing. But again, it depends exactly what you're looking for.
Do you want to do I don't know if you have a document available, but since we had talked about that
Yeah,
one, just to do that really quickly too, and then maybe in the last few minutes we could just go through some use cases to
use
explore,
papers,
and
sure.
then on their own, and then also just leave a minute for Q&A.
Yeah,
But if you don't have a document, I was thinking too that founders document that I sent you, if you have it downloaded, to pull it up in
probably do
Perplexity
have
or something.
something. Do you want me to do it in Perplexity? Sure.
That's where I was thinking, because since Perplexity shows a lot of the
Yeah.
sources,
Oh, and you
um,
can do this. Yeah.
I like Perplexity specifically for when you're researching, um, just because again, it's like it's the tool for research. It's like knowing that it's going to do a little bit more in terms of ensuring that you have a trail. This way, there's no questions because that's the big thing with companies right now is there's a lot of legalities around not just identification, but the term indemnification, which is can they prove how the data was sourced and how it came to get some sort of response when I'm sure you've heard a lot about the hallucinations that AI sometimes produces and things like that. So
How about this? The one I have got here, I'm not immediately seeing but we could do just the presentation, the presentation we've got from today. We could have a look at that one.
yeah, pull it up. Let's just show some of the questions. You know what? Ask it this way. We're segueing to ask it to pull out the top use cases. So
Okay.
this way the idea again since it did end up being the Samantha show and I rambled on too long and we didn't get to go through these. This is what you can do. You can just in whatever tool, like I noted for something legal or medical or whatnot. I personally really like the Google tool, but whether it's Perplexity or any of the tools, just again, make sure that you're not sharing anything that could potentially be harmful to you in sharing. Um, you can just share it and then begin to have a conversation with it. So Daryl, you start that,
Okay.
and there's a
Just a
question.
quick one, just as we kick this off, just to let folks know. So what I pulled up was this. Might be able to see it's a PowerPoint document in this case. So it's the PowerPoint document of the presentation. It's in the PPTX mode. It could have been the PDF. It could be different formats. It says, let's see what happens.
And then there's a question of what tool do people use as a counselor? Um, If there's any more specifics to that. But otherwise, I know in general, some of the use cases that immediately come to mind for counselors is notes. As long as the individual that you're counseling agrees that it can take notes behind the scenes while you're talking to help you then follow up and make sure that you don't miss anything, allowing you to focus in. Um, I know it can then, also that's where some of the automation comes in. It can help with scheduling and creating a little bit of a path for a client for a client. Um, as well as just, leveraging it to stay up to date on the most top of mind research and things like that. It can make suggestions for you. If you allow it to kind of take in what the client is saying, if it can be alerted of like, hey, this is a key topic. Here are some articles that are, the most prevalent information. We'll segue back and forth between the questions. So back to you, Daryl, with this.
Yeah. No, actually, just to add on what you're saying in terms of that idea for counselors as well, I think it does go back to you obviously you don't want to share private information about your clients or anything like that to these systems unless you definitely got the privacy turned on. But then it can be, I'll just say, it's a slight, I think, related use case that I run a team and I sometimes do use these systems for like almost like those soft skills. Like maybe I'll notice among the team members that I'm not always the best at getting certain members of the team motivated to do certain tasks or something like that. So what I might do then is just ask more in the abstract as opposed to giving it real advice, like information about every team member. I might just ask it, I'm just generally I'm trying to figure out this piece of what I'm trying to do. How could I ask this better to get the team motivated? What are the ways of doing it? And it tends to will give you a bunch of
Mhm.
options. I would say don't, you then read through those and you think some of them are great, some of them less so good, and you can pick the ones that work for you. But
Yeah.
yeah, but do make sure as well, like
That makes me think too.
yeah.
So see, now I'm gonna interrupt. So that makes me think too, like in general, like sometimes we have to remind ourselves that AI can be a thought partner and a collaborator for us. So you could actually, share a little bit with AI. And it's in the slides, so make sure you download the slides, but we didn't get to go into really the best frameworks for prompts. But you could give AI, I am this type of counselor. I'd like you to act as my partner serving in this style of counseling. However, you don't have to give it an abundance, give it a few notes. Um, and you could also ask it like how should I work with you as a partner to improve my work as well as, deliver more value to my clients. Like ask it for the top use cases. And you could also just do that if you wanted to. You could say, what are counselor top use cases to use you? But the more what I was noting, the more details, the more you can kind of share a little bit about what role you'd like it to take with you, what realm of counseling, et cetera, those sort of things. And I'm learning what SOAP notes is. So thank you so much. You could even mention, I'd like my notes to be SOAP in this format. Um, the more it'll produce closer to what you're looking for. So yes, okay. And with 5 minutes left too, I know Daryl, he just took his he just took his time. Uh, but we began to do this again. I would say go explore with these. Daryl, I'm sorry, Daryl, I know I said to do this, but why don't we just go to the very last slide with our
Okay,
suggestions?
sure.
And then we can just take the last few minutes for any specific questions.
Yeah. No, that works.
So
And I
we
think it's
wanted to just share too, like how you might leave with a plan. And to be honest, there are a abundance of resources. It's like just overwhelming. So I initially was going to make a slide, and then I was like, you know what, this is just too much. We don't want you to get overwhelmed, right? Because frankly, I am so overwhelmed just at the idea of it. So the best things, the best steps, real steps you can do is one, just start with one AI tool, maybe two, because sometimes I do like to compare, as Dara was showing, like you can kind of go back and forth a little bit, see what you're getting. But just start with at least one. And then as you feel more comfortable, play along with some others. Daryl, throw in like the Lovable link and like those like there's a you don't have to. But check out tools like Lovable. Daryl and I both enjoyed recently a tool that's frankly not so great, but the concept is very interesting. It's called Pulsia. It's like will produce a business for you. You only get a free 3-day trial though, but it's worth playing around with for 3 days. And if it's only, I don't know, it's not super expensive if you decide you like it. Um, Try it out for one real task, right? Decide, some tasks that you want to leverage it on, whether it's generating some sort of copy, like here it suggests, right, drafting an email, summarizing an article, etc. Brainstorming your next project. That's something that you can tell. I have all of these Samantha rambles, right? So I often ask, I like Claude a lot in terms of this. I ask Claude, I'll like brain dump on it and ask it to help me um, like take what I said and make it sound better and more eloquent. And then join a community. Even frankly, even if it's like this community, if you all decide like, hey, we really do want to look at an agentic framework and maybe do a build, then Daryl and I would love to come back. But that's like this is where that's something so specific we need to hone into it. So feel free, let us know if there's something. Continue to engage with yourselves and also just Google and search, Arizona AI or whatever areas you're in. There's also so many free um, educational components, even certificates for all of these tools. If you look at like when you look at Claude, when you look at ChatGPT, you can look at all the big tech companies, IBM, AWS, etc. All of them have free certifications. Um, and then, this is where it's like, oh my gosh, which one do I do? This is where it's like play around with it at first, decide what's valuable for you, um, and then go from there. So I know it ended up being a big Samantha show. And hopefully some of it was of value, but we have a few minutes. If there's any other questions or anything that we can share with you before we begin to wrap up, we'd love to
Uh, Samantha, this is Carrie. I put the questions in chat that were asked before, and I think you just touched on one. Are there any certifications that you can get without a degree in AI? And I assume they mean to not only be knowledgeable, but maybe assist with employability. Do you know of any that you can get without a school degree? I think you just touched on a couple.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if we can just Google real quick, I don't know if Dara, if you're
I
Googling,
would say one that,
Google like top 10 free AI certifications for 2026.
yeah.
This is where it's like you want to make sure that you're getting what you want though, because like, yeah, invest and kind of explore them a little bit. Like the IBM one, the AWS one, the Microsoft one, I would say are a bit more technical. So if you want to understand like, how AI fits within machine learning, within the greater scheme of things, even maybe a little bit of tips, hey, where are things headed with quantum? Try those. I've done a lot of them. I really loved um the Anthropic one. Anthropic has one that's just so interesting. It's very much about collaboration and becoming that collaborative partner with AI. So if you're someone that wants to just understand your journey individually with AI, I would recommend Claude and Anthropic. Um, but we can share a link, and then also just noting that any of these tools you could put that question in, tell it what you're looking to get out of it. This is where you want to do the framework of just you know research research the top AI free certifications and whatnot today. Um, Focused on X, Y, and Z, whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe to the counselor one, right? Focused on use cases specifically for counselors in this arena. What would you recommend for me to pursue? And it can also give you some details that way as well. So I know I'm rambling here, and I know we're over. Darren,
Actually,
do you
just on
have
that note,
anything?
one
Oh,
that
you
is
want?
quite good
You-
is the LinkedIn. If you're on the business side, LinkedIn Learning. That platform has some really good
Mm,
AI courses, and I know sometimes they'll charge for some of them. One tip there is that I think it's partnered with, I know it happens here. I believe with a lot of public, if you go to your local library and you tell them you want LinkedIn, they can usually give you a free pass. And there's a way to access it through most public libraries. So you can get a free access to get to those LinkedIn ones, which, as Sam was saying, there's a lot of these that go into more technical side. The LinkedIn ones, especially if you're more in the like just general business realm, could be marketing, could be accounting, wondering about how to get the most from AI. Those LinkedIn ones can be and they go from things that could be an hour to ones that could take you multiple days.
Yeah. Good.
I'll throw a link in the chat too, real quick.
And we had one
You,
more. I don't know if we got to this. How can I use AI so it isn't just validating my experience? How do I get it to be objective? Is that just in how you ask the question?
I, I would need maybe, unless Daryl, you have a
I
different
would
opinion, I would
say,
need
yeah,
it.
it is largely how you answer. Like you can push them. You may have noticed that a lot of the tools are almost geared to be slightly almost like servile in their approach. Like even if you ever use them for
Hmm.
coding, quite often they'll get something wrong and they'll tell you first up, oh, I've built your system. They'll just say that. And then you go look at it and you'd be like, well, it's not working. This thing's the wrong color. And then it'll be like, oh, yeah, you're totally right. It's kind of wrong color. It's like, well, yeah, you got that wrong. Why couldn't you figure that out? It'll come across like with this kind of tone of being like, yeah, there are ways I know you can sometimes prompt them to then it comes in the prompt where you can ask it to, I think this. Two things which we didn't really touch on, but when we share the notes, you can look through the presentation. One is like
Hmm.
the persona that you ask it to adopt. So you can ask it to be, if you ask it specifically to be, here is my point of view, adopt the persona of an expert in this field that's highly skeptical
Hmm.
then it will give you a very different answer to one that it will typically give you, which normally it will give you something that will usually it's takes what you give and then it adds something to it. But then if you use things like ask it to be skeptical, I know there's things I work in marketing and on the creative side, there's ways because what it will tend to do, like it goes back to this thing that it always looks for it's kind of looking for patterns. And sometimes when you're doing creative stuff, you don't want it to find the pattern that's right in the middle because that's just obvious and not that interesting. But there's ways that you can use certain prompts. You can look for these prompts. Again, go to the tools, ask it, say, what are the prompts that can help me be more creative? And I forgot the exact name. It's something like enhanced diffusion or something. There's ways that you can actually poke at the system and tell it not to give me the kind of the affirming answer, but give me the one that really challenges my belief. If you ask it, it'll typically do that.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
yeah,
And
one thing, I'm sorry, kind of jumping in or whatever, because I thought about it. So growwithgoogle.com. I know that one, when I was working a long time ago, the guy that I was working with says, dude, have you ever tried it? Well, I looked at it, but from what I understand is that they will actually train you for employees like Discover, artificial intelligence, like just the generic brand, but you have a plethora of different things to pick from. And then from there, like, hey, if you want, how to drum better, how to like I was talking to the guy, Dan or whatever, for the Brain Injury Alliance. I heard from Canva that you can actually create like coloring books, like go to Amazon and say search for a coloring book that has the best niche or whatever, and then from there use Canva to create like coloring books, and then ultimately get to the point where you can actually make it a reoccurring profitable thing that you can sell those coloring books on Amazon and then go from there. Separate from that, just because I know you guys were just talking about it, I went to my chat GPT, and what I can do is I can give you the path, but ultimately you go into, let me go back to it, go into personalization, and then there's custom instructions that you have in there that you can type whatever you want. So again, Daryl, were bringing up good points because I didn't think about those, but that you could, like, I have it set to where, like the first thing it says, you are an expert who double checks everything. You are skeptical and you do research. I am not always right, neither are you, but we both strive for accuracy. Be my ruthless mentor, challenge my assumptions, stress test me, everything, stress test everything. Um, I need structures everything I need, and I need bulletproof thinking and certainty. And that is just like a simple paragraph, but I got that from a guy named Dan, whatever. He was all about ChatGPT, and then somebody commented saying, just change your personalization. So I did that, and now my ChatGPT is like, okay, here's the brutal truth. You don't like what I'm saying, that's okay, but let's just be honest here. And it like totally is different than what Daryl was just looking at, but that's just me because I feel like I'm not to say more advanced, but I'm just up for a better challenge than the typical, click here for a free version kind of thing.
Good.
But that's just me.
Thank you for that. And as we leave, we had one more question submitted ahead of time, and if you could just briefly touch on this, what safeguards do we need to take to protect ourselves as we leave and go out into this new adventure? And I know you mentioned not putting like your name or any kind of maybe proprietary important work documents in it. How can
Yeah.
people just basically protect themselves?
Absolutely. So one, if you didn't see it, but hopefully it'll come up in the recording of the chat, I screenshotted where you will find the toggles, the options to opt out in both Claude and ChatGPT. You just want to make sure that you are giving permissions as you want to. If you don't mind it training on your data, then fine. But otherwise, you have those options to opt out of it. And then Daryl, if you go a few slides up real quick, I think we have one, just a few more. It was like the one with the four squares, right before the use cases. So just, protecting yourself in these regards as you use AI, that, in general, just super quick. It can be wrong, bias is real, and just knowing that you don't want to get yourself. I mean, I shouldn't say I doubt you. Well, who knows what could happen? Um, it would have to be a very interesting occurrence to actually get in trouble, but you don't want to get yourself in any sort of situation where you potentially could get in trouble, or frankly, it's not even getting in trouble. It's causing you some sort of hassle because AI gave you some information that was wrong. So just making sure you're doing your due diligence and noting that there are these challenges out there. And then in terms of the privacy matters we touched on, and I would say also just staying up to date on different AI scams as you'd like to. I mean, they're so fascinating to me. So I do have like a Google alert for AI scams because I think it's so interesting. But it's not AI that's doing that. That's bad actors that are leveraging AI to trick you with either some sort of generated voice or generated image and trick you. So if you're just making sure that you're up to date, that a big one now is that they someone, I don't totally know the mechanics, but someone on all these calls that I don't know who answers them, but my mom does apparently, because I was with her the other day and she decided to answer the phone. But she did it in like the strangest voice because she's not, she's aware. She did it in a very strange voice. I'm like, why did you even answer it? Because she wanted to, she likes to answer the phone. But I said, why did you answer it in that strange voice? She's like, I don't want them to record my voice. And then they use AI to create some sort of message where suddenly my mom's calling me to say she's, I don't know, in jail and send money immediately, blah, blah, blah. So there's things like that, that it's, again, it's not the AI, it's the bad actors that are using the AI, but just making sure that you're aware of those, that there is unfortunately not nice people that do not nice things like that, and just being mindful to it. So Daryl, anything else there? Because I feel like that's such a large question, right? There's
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked to, I don't know if you want to touch on this, Daryl, about like communicating with your employer. So a lot of things we work with in our community is going back to work and reinventing yourself. And so your employer might not be excited if you get assigned a project and you throw everything into AI. Can you talk a little bit about that
Yeah.
and as we
Yeah,
wrap
no,
up?
I don't mind talking. Yes. Yeah, definitely be careful. I think also, we've seen that even over the past year. I work in marketing, so we do things like blog posts, do marketing materials, and I'll say the bar is constantly moving. We do use these tools. I've been involved with projects where we've just given the whole thing over to the tool, which I would not advocate and wouldn't recommend at all. like in any sense, whether it's anything, whether it's a personal communication you're writing to somebody, whether it's something you're writing on behalf of a company. But definitely be careful in terms of, think of it as I think the best way to think of the tool is like a thought partner that can be really useful to come up with ideas that you might not have come up with. I was trying to write I can't remember, there was some problem with my son and his gym membership, and we wanted to make a strong case, but didn't want to still wanted to keep a strong relationship with the gym because we wanted to continue going there. It worked quite well it didn't give me the full, I didn't just say it gave me a thing to write and it didn't just take that and publish it. But I did work with it to get to a point where it was like, okay, it had a few good points for me. I think as you're then taking this into the workplace, it can be good I think we're at a point where it's good one is to figure out within the workplace you're going into, what is their general posture towards this technology. It depends where you're going. Certain tech, some people are really into it, use it heavily, some less so. Even then, if you're into an environment or a work company that use it heavily, I'd say be careful in terms of going too far and just giving up and being effectively lazy and just not spending and just saying, oh, I'll get the AI tool to do that piece of my job, or I'll get it to send this communication out. It can be really helpful to get you to a better place, but always think about how you can use it as a thought partner, not necessarily just give it something and just let it go with it. I don't know, Sam, anything to add from your side?
No, I think, it's so funny because I'm one of those people that I think a lot of us are like, it feels like cheating sometimes. And I think not if you use AI and just don't work with it, it's not going to be great. It's going to give you the average of everything. It's not going to produce good things. So I mean that's where you're going to get in trouble. I think in our experience and what we're seeing, right, with at least the larger companies, uh the shift is that there is an expectation that you will use AI and understanding that you will use it in a way that together it's just it's elevating. It's elevating the work, or you're elevating what it produces, and it's allowing you to take back time and take some of the ideally you're taking the mundane things off your plate and focusing on the more transformative things. But it, I would guess that um I would be surprised. I would be interested to have like a little uh, conversation and explore if there are a community of managers out there who don't want you to use AI. I feel like everyone has an expectation of these skills and wants you to be doing more. So that's how you're doing it. It's just doing it in the right way because yeah, again, you're not gonna it can't produce without you. There has to be a partnership. Yeah. I know we're over. We so love that you guys stuck around with us. Thank you. And we sent some more links in there, so hopefully when the recording goes out, that'll all be in there. Uh, and I think, if there are any other questions or comments or, like I said, I so love community. So if like you guys, hopefully, some of the people on this call or whatnot, you all keep talking and learning together. If there's something that pops up, a hot topic, we'd love to come back and help and share more in any sort of specific area. So thank you all so much for having us. And yeah, we're looking forward to staying engaged and hopefully seeing what the great things you're producing. You can, and like Dower said, go on LinkedIn and find things, but you can find us on LinkedIn too. We'll all stay connected.
Yeah, by all means. I'd just say as well, I didn't know what to expect. I think we produced a lot of content because thinking, well, if there's no questions, we'll have a bunch of stuff. At least we need to make sure we fill all that up. But that was by no means the case today. It's so great to be part of something
No, we
where you
love
guys
this
have been
group.
so interactive. I know people have been answering questions in the chat about things like Canva and stuff that we didn't even get into. So yeah, no, really happy to have had the opportunity to be a part of this. And yeah, if there's any ways that can connect or continue to add to this community, more than happy to.
Good. Well, we
Amazing.
really appreciate you, and you're welcome to stop back by anytime. So thank you so
Awesome.
much. We'll get this recording out as well as, You guys gave me some work to do with all these great links in the chat, so I will put those in an email as well and get everything out to you as soon as it processes.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much, and we'll
Thank
speak
you.
with you